My dad and his girlfriend walked in saying, "We need a place to stay temporarily." I nodded, thinking it was just a favor. Weeks later, I found out they were trying to take over my home, and that's when I took actions. Hey everyone, I am Nate, 22 years old, currently finishing my civil engineering degree at Ohio State University. Most people see me as the quiet guy who keeps his head down, studies hard, and doesn't make waves. What they don't know is that I own a beautiful 4-bedroom farmhouse on 3 acres in Willow Creek, Ohio, completely free and clear, thanks to my grandparents who raised me after my mom died in a car accident when I was 12 years old. My grandparents, Ruth and Bill Walker, were the kind of careful, hard-working people who believed in doing things the right way, even when it was more difficult. Before they passed away, Grandma Ruth in 2019 from complications after a stroke, and Grandpa Bill 6 months later from lung cancer he had hidden from all of us. They established a revocable living trust naming me as the sole beneficiary. The house, the land, everything transferred to me cleanly when I turned 18 years old. No probate, no confusion, no family drama. My father, Hank, witnessed the trust documents being signed at the lawyer's office and said he understood completely. But apparently, somewhere along the way between that meeting and last fall, he decided that conversation never happened. Fast forward to October of last year. I was deep into my junior year coursework, taking advanced structural analysis and spending most of my free time either studying or working part-time at Henderson Engineering. Life was good, my grades were solid, and I was even starting to think about where I might want to work after graduation. That is when Dad showed up at my front door with Brooke Ellis, his new girlfriend. I had heard him mention her name maybe twice during our monthly phone calls, usually in passing while he complained about his job as a foreman at Morrison Construction. Brooke Ellis was 31 years old, worked as a program coordinator for Little Sprouts Preschool in nearby Findlay, and looked like she had stepped directly out of a wellness influencer's Instagram feed. Her 2 children from a previous relationship, Camden, who was 9, and Avery, who was 7, were actually pretty decent kids when they weren't being used as pawns in their mother's manipulation games. "Hey sport," Dad said that crisp October evening, standing on my front porch with his arm around Brooke's shoulders. "This is Brooke. I have told you about her." This was a complete lie since he had mentioned her exactly twice in passing, but I let it slide. "We were wondering if we could stay here for a few weeks. Brooke's lease is up at her apartment complex, and we are looking for a bigger place together, just until we find something permanent." I said yes, because what else do you say when your father asks for temporary help? I had been raised to believe that family helps family, and I had plenty of space. "The guest room is all yours," I told them. That was my first mistake, saying yes too quickly without establishing clear boundaries or timelines. Within 48 hours, I understood that Brooke Ellis wasn't just staying at my house temporarily. She was staging what could only be described as a hostile takeover of my entire living situation. It started with small things that I initially dismissed as quirks or preferences. She replaced my perfectly functional dish towels with her own organic bamboo ones that cost 3 times as much and felt scratchy. She reorganized my pantry, throwing away half my food because it didn't meet her clean eating standards, including a nearly full jar of peanut butter and several cans of soup I had bought on sale. She posted a laminated schedule on my refrigerator titled "Quiet Hours for Optimal Household Harmony," designating 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. as times when there should be no television, no music above a whisper, and no disruptive activities. When I pointed out that I often studied late into the night and sometimes had video calls with my engineering study group that could run until 11 p.m., she suggested I could use the basement instead. "It is all about creating positive energy flow throughout the space," she explained while burning sage in my living room, filling the air with smoke that made my eyes water. "Hank and I are really trying to build something healthy and sustainable here, and structure helps everyone thrive." Dad backed her up completely. "Brooke knows what she is talking about, Nate. She has got professional training in child development and family dynamics. Maybe it is time you learned some life skills about living harmoniously with other people." This stung because I had been successfully living alone in this house for 4 years while maintaining a 3.7 GPA in one of the most demanding engineering programs in the state, managing a part-time job, and keeping up with all the maintenance and expenses that come with homeownership. Update 1: the first major incident happened on a Wednesday in November. I came home from my advanced structural analysis class to find Brooke in my bedroom, systematically stripping my bed and folding my clothes into cardboard boxes she would apparently acquired from somewhere. "What are you doing?" I asked, standing in the doorway of what had been my private space since I was 18 years old. "Oh good, you are home." She straightened up, holding my favorite Ohio State sweatshirt that Grandma Ruth had given me for my 18th birthday. I am helping you transition to a more mature living situation. These cartoon posters really need to come down. They are not doing you any favors with potential girlfriends. The cartoon posters she was referring to were actually carefully framed engineering blueprints of famous bridges that I had collected as inspiration for my career. The Golden Gate Bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge, the Mackinac Bridge, each representing different innovations in structural design. Brooke, this is my bedroom. I didn't ask for help redecorating, and I certainly didn't give you permission to pack up my belongings, she laughed. That tinkling sound that probably charmed Dad but hit my ears like nails on a chalkboard. Oh, sweetie, I know change is hard, but Hank and I talked about this extensively last night. You are 22 now, not 18. It is time to level up your living space. She handed me a clipboard with 3 typed pages titled House Rules for Everyone's Success and Well-Being. The list included gems like all personal items must be approved for common area display, kitchen usage limited to designated mealtimes to maintain optimal workflow, and overnight guests require 48-hour advance approval from household leadership. Household leadership, not the homeowner or Nate, but household leadership. As if we were living in some kind of commune where decisions were made by committee. When Dad got home with Thai takeout, I cornered him in the kitchen. We need to talk about boundaries, I said. He sighed and ran his hand through his graying hair. Nate, I know this is an adjustment, but Brooke's just trying to help. She is really good at organizing and creating structure. Maybe you could be a little more flexible. She rearranged my bedroom without asking. She threw away my food. She is making rules about when I can use my own kitchen, and it looks great. More grown-up, more sophisticated. You cannot live like a college freshman forever, son. His tone carried that lecturing quality that had always annoyed me. Dad, this is my house. Something flickered across his face. Irritation, maybe resentment. It is our family home, son. Your grandparents would have wanted us all to get along and work together. That was the first time he tried to rewrite history about the ownership situation, but it wouldn't be the last. The second major incident escalated 3 weeks later at Thanksgiving. Brooke had invited her mother Sandra Ellis to join us for dinner without asking me first. During dinner, after we had gone around the table sharing what we were thankful for, a tradition I had never participated in before but that Brooke insisted was essential for family bonding. Dad stood up and cleared his throat. Before we have dessert, Brooke and I have some news to share. He pulled out a small velvet box and got down on one knee. Brooke Ellis. Will you marry me? She gasped and covered her mouth like she was completely surprised, though I noticed her nails were freshly manicured and her makeup was perfect for photos. Yes, of course, yes. She held up her left hand to show off a modest solitaire ring that probably cost Dad 3 months' salary. Congratulations, I said. Because I am not a complete asshole, even when I am feeling blindsided. Thank you, sweetie, Brooke said. We are so excited to start building our life together, and the timing is perfect because we have some other news to share as well. She paused dramatically. We are pregnant. Camden and Avery cheered. Sandra clapped her hands and immediately started talking about baby names. Dad beamed like he had just won the lottery. I felt something cold and heavy settle in my stomach. That is wonderful. Congratulations to both of you. Now, Sandra said, leaning forward with predatory focus, we need to talk logistics. Brooke cannot be climbing stairs constantly in her condition, especially later in the pregnancy. And with a new baby coming, you will need proper space for a nursery, somewhere quiet where the baby can sleep without being disturbed by household noise. The house has 4 bedrooms, I said carefully. Well, yes, but not really, Brooke said, shifting into her planning voice. Camden and Avery need their room. They are at ages where they need stability in their own space. Hank and I need the master bedroom. Obviously, that leaves your room and the small guest room downstairs. The guest room would be perfect for a nursery because it is right next to the master bedroom. But your room has the best natural light and the most space. It would be perfect for you to launch. Launch like I was a rocket they were trying to get off the launch pad. Launch to where? I asked. I have the perfect solution, Brooke said, pulling out her phone to show me a rental listing. There is a really cute 1-bedroom apartment in my old complex in Columbus, the Riverside Gardens Apartments. It is close to campus, and since I know the property manager, I could probably get you a discount, maybe just $1,200 a month, instead of the usual $1,500. $1,200 a month. That was more than I made from my part-time job. even with scholarship money left over after tuition. Here is the kicker. Brooke was 12 weeks pregnant. They moved in October, which meant she conceived in early September. This wasn't a temporary arrangement that had gotten complicated by an unexpected pregnancy. This was a planned invasion, carefully orchestrated from the beginning. The third and final incident happened the following weekend. I had gone to campus for a study group session and came home around 4 in the afternoon to find a moving truck parked in my driveway and two guys in Columbus Express Moving Company t-shirts carrying boxes labeled Nate's room out of my house. I parked my Ford F-150 behind the truck and jogged to the front door. "Excuse me, what is going on here?" I called to one of the movers. "Moving job," he said, adjusting his grip on a box containing my engineering textbooks. "Lady inside hired us to pack up a bedroom and transport everything to a storage unit." Inside, I found Brooke directing traffic from the kitchen with a clipboard in one hand and her phone in the other. "Nate," she said brightly, "perfect timing. I went ahead and scheduled the move for today since you seemed hesitant to make decisions. Sometimes we all need a little push to embrace positive change. You are moving my stuff without my permission." "Oh, don't be so dramatic. I am just helping you transition. Your things will be perfectly safe in the storage unit until you get settled. And look," she gestured toward the stairs. "I have already ordered the most beautiful nursery furniture." I walked upstairs to see my bedroom completely empty, except for my mattress on the floor and a single lamp. My computer desk was gone. My drafting table where I worked on assignments was nowhere to be seen. Everything had been packed away like I was already gone. "Brooke, you need to stop the movers right now and bring my stuff back inside. This is not happening. I really don't think that is the best idea. This is about forward momentum. Sometimes we have to just rip the Band-Aid off." Dad chose that moment to walk in from the garage where he would apparently been hiding. "How is it going in here?" he asked like he was commenting on the weather. "Dad, did you know about this? Brooke mentioned she was going to help you get organized for the move. She is just being efficient. I never agreed to move anywhere. We talked about this at Thanksgiving, and I said I needed to think about it." Brooke looked at me with that patient expression you would use with a toddler. "Nate, sweetheart, we have talked about this. You cannot live in your childhood bedroom forever. This baby needs space, and it is time for you to learn some independence. Your grandmother would have wanted you to be self-reliant." She was invoking my grandmother's memory to justify stealing my bedroom. "Did my grandmother ever tell you what she wanted?" I asked quietly. "Well, no. I never met her personally, but any good grandmother would want her grandson to grow up and make his own way in the world." "And did my grandfather ever tell you about his wishes for this property?" "I am sure he would want what is best for the family," Dad interjected. "And what is best right now is making room for the new baby." I looked around at the moving boxes, at Brooke's satisfied smile, at Dad's carefully neutral expression. "Whose name," I asked quietly, "is on the deed to this house?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Brooke's smile flickered. Dad's jaw tightened. The movers stopped what they were doing. "That is just paperwork, honey," Brooke said finally. "Families share property all the time. Legal documents are just formalities. Just paperwork, just formalities." That is when I realized they had never actually looked at the deed. They were operating on assumptions and the belief that I was too young or too passive to assert my legal rights. They were about to learn otherwise. Update 2: I spent Monday morning at the Hancock County Recorder's office, skipping my morning classes. Mrs. Dorothy Dorsey, who had worked there for 23 years, remembered my grandfather fondly. "Bill Walker," she said with a smile. "Nicest man you would ever want to meet. Always brought me cookies at Christmas. You look just like him, Mrs. Dorsey. I need certified copies of the warranty deed and trust documents for the property at 4847 Creek Road." She disappeared into the back room and returned with a manila folder. "Property transferred to the Walker Family Revocable Living Trust in 2018, with Nathan James Walker as sole beneficiary upon reaching age 18. Very clean documentation, just like your grandfather always insisted on." I paid the $15 fee and drove home with legal nuclear weapons. The deed was crystal clear. Nathan James Walker, trustee of the Walker Family Revocable Living Trust, to have and to hold the above described premises forever. But the trust document was even better. Buried in Section 7 was a clause Grandpa had insisted on: no transfer, encumbrance, or change in beneficial ownership shall be valid without the express written consent of the current beneficiary, properly witnessed and notarized. When I got home, Brooke was in my former bedroom with a tape measure, planning nursery furniture placement. She had hung a baby on board sign on the door. "How was your morning?" she asked cheerfully. "Educational. Could you come downstairs? I would like to show you and Dad something." 5 minutes later, we were gathered in the living room. I spread the certified documents across the coffee table like a poker player revealing a royal flush. "These are the ownership documents for this property, filed with the county, legally binding, and very specific about who has what rights." Dad leaned forward and his face grew pale as he read. Brooke picked up the deed and scanned it quickly. "I don't understand. This says you own the house." "That is correct. But you are just a college student." "How can a college student own a house?" "A college student who inherited this property through a properly executed trust when he turned 18. Everything was transferred legally and recorded with the county." Dad was staring at the trust document. "Nate, I remember Dad talking about some legal stuff, but I thought it was just temporary until you got older. Maybe we could work out a family arrangement where we all contribute and make decisions together." "What kind of arrangement?" "Well, you could stay here, but we would all contribute to household expenses. Share the space fairly among all the adults. Share the space fairly by giving you and Brooke the master bedroom, Camden and Avery their room, the baby the guest room, and me a $1,200 apartment in Columbus." Brooke stood up, her composure cracking. "This is ridiculous. You cannot just kick out a pregnant woman and 2 innocent children. That is not how families work." "You are absolutely right. That is not how families work. Families don't move into someone else's house and try to evict the owner. Families don't pack up belongings without permission. Families don't turn bedrooms into nurseries without consulting the person who pays property taxes." "We never said we were kicking you out," Dad protested. "We just thought you would want independence. By forcing me to pay $1,200 a month so you could take over my house rent-free." My best friend Ty Miller knocked on the door. I had texted him earlier asking him to stop by for moral support, and because he was a first-year law student who might have useful insights. He read the documents carefully, asking clarifying questions. "This is pretty straightforward," he said finally. "Nate owns the property outright through the trust. Anyone living here without his permission is trespassing. Anyone living here with permission but without a formal lease is what we call a tenant at will under Ohio law." "What does that mean?" Brooke asked. "It means Nate can terminate your tenancy with 30 days written notice. No cause required, no negotiation necessary." Dad leaned back. "Surely there are protections for families." "Not really," Ty said. "Property rights are pretty absolute. The only exception might be if you had a written lease or had been paying rent. But you have been living rent-free based on a verbal understanding that is broken down." Brooke stood abruptly. "You are seriously going to throw out a pregnant woman and 2 children over legal technicalities?" "I am not throwing anyone out," I said calmly. "I am offering 2 choices. Pay fair market rent with a formal lease that includes respect for my privacy and property, or find alternative housing that suits your needs and budget. And if we cannot afford market rent, then you find something you can afford. That is what responsible adults do." She turned to Dad desperately. "Are you going to let him talk to me like this?" Dad looked older than his 53 years. "Brooke, maybe we should think logically. We knew this was supposed to be temporary. Maybe it is time to look for a place we can actually afford." "It is his house," he said quietly. "It has always been his house." 3 days later, I sent Dad and Brooke certified letters giving 30 days notice. "Your tenancy terminates the 15th of January 2024. Surrender the premises on or before that date." Brooke went nuclear, calling the sheriff to claim I was harassing a pregnant woman. Deputy Martinez read the envelopes. "This is a civil matter. Proper notice was served." She also filed discrimination and illegal eviction complaints. Both were dismissed because those protections cover rentals, not informal family stays, and she had lived rent-free. Then the real hit came. Mrs. Dorsey at the county recorder phoned. Someone tried to record a quitclaim adding my father to the deed with a signature that resembled mine. I hadn't signed anything. I filed a fraud affidavit and a police report. The plan was obvious. Add Dad to title, claim homestead, and make removal nearly impossible. They tried to steal my house through paperwork theft. Final update: on January 18th we stood before Judge Patricia Hendricks. She called the case straightforward. I owned the home via trust, had served proper notice, and the occupants refused to leave. The defense cited pregnancy, improvements, and hardship. The judge rejected each. The statutes don't create a lease. Decor isn't a legal improvement, and hardship doesn't grant a right to remain. She ordered immediate possession, 72 hours to vacate, and $5,000 in fair market rent for 10 unpaid weeks. Outside, Dad caught up. She is pregnant with my child. Cannot we work something out? You watched her pack my things, I said. And someone tried to forge my name on a deed. He looked at his shoes and muttered about family and shared expenses. Shared expenses? You never paid rent. It is my home. Grandpa wanted me secure, not at the mercy of entitlement. Brooke came over crying. I wanted stability. Cannot you forgive family? You are not my family, I said. You tried to take my house. The only reason you are not in cuffs is that the fraud case is still being built. They split quickly. Brooke moved back to Indiana. Dad turned in his key on January 20th, rented a one-bedroom, and left an apology note. I didn't chase the $5,000 because he was paycheck to paycheck and collecting wouldn't change my life. The fraud count pled down to a misdemeanor with restitution and a 2-year no-contact order. I changed locks, added cameras, and with Ty's help, put my room back together. Over pizza, Ty asked for the takeaway. Respect isn't automatic because we share blood, I said. It is earned, and paperwork protects you from people who confuse good intentions with a right to your home. 6 months later, I am still in the house my grandparents left me. Classes are steady, stressed down, and I am seeing Sarah, an engineering student who respects boundaries. Brooke had her baby in July. Dad pays support and sees his daughter on weekends. In the garden, Grandma's heirloom seeds thrive. I think about Grandpa's lesson, money matters, but so do fences, on paper and in life. The house is mine, lines are clear, and anyone who wants to stay signs a lease.